Welcome to Code Together, a podcast for developers by developers, where we discuss technology and trends in industry. I'm your host, Tony Monkolsmine. Welcome to Code Together today, everybody. We are trying something new today. We're going to do video podcasts. And today I am joined by David Berenstein, who is a developer advocate engineer at Argilla, one of the companies who has partnered with the Intel Liftoff for Startups program. And we're going to talk to him today about Argilla, LLMs, NLPs, and production-grade AI solutions. So welcome to the podcast, David.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So let's start off with the easy stuff. You're a developer advocate engineer at Argilla. Tell us a little bit about Argilla.
So yeah, Argilla is a open source collaboration platform for AI engineers and domain experts that are working on an AI project, but specifically with a focus on NLP, and that really require high quality outputs, data ownership, and also overall efficiency. So we try to kind of bridge the gap between going from your initial idea of where you want to go with your model to actually gathering data and fine-tuning the data to get your high quality model outputs.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting challenges that everybody always has is how do I get the right data? How do I get good data? Which is a problem that you guys are solving. And I've talked to other companies that are kind of doing similar things in this area. And usually they're talking about things like RAG, but they are also very much in the world of low-level code, just kind of looking at data SDKs. And you guys actually have kind of a nice clean UI. It looked like you guys, it's mentioned on your website using Vue.js and things like that. So how does the Argilla platform make things easier for people who are trying to get that right level of data accuracy?
Yeah, so what we do is we focus on two types of personalities. One is the data scientist or AI engineer or these kind of people that really think about how to configure the data set, how to actually get some initial silver AI feedback from your AI models that you're running in production, or maybe from LLMs that can do nowadays everything basically, and then actually structure the data in such a way that all of the domain experts and often also the AI engineers themselves actually can make the most of the data exploration by adding filters, by adding metadata, by adding semantic search, and all of these kind of things that really speed up the labeling process and really enable people to go from your initial silver data and silver annotated data, which is going to be fine for any arbitrary model, to your golden high quality data set that you actually need for the state of the art models on benchmark, but also on the empirical tests, I would say. And we actually have one additional tool that we're working on currently, which is called this T-label. I'm not sure if you've seen it come by or maybe you've read through the GitHub README.
I have not. What is it?
Okay, cool. So it's also a framework built upon prompt templates and actually verified LLM research. Also, a lot of these different LLM providers, so both open and closed source providers, that actually allows you to define synthetic data generation and AI feedback pipelines on the fly with like fault tolerance in implemented and all of these kind of things. So that you can really, besides having your internal actual usage data, also generate synthetic data and AI feedback. And that kind of plays nicely together with having this really cool UI to kind of wrap up and kind of add the final human touch on top of your data.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And I really enjoyed, again, so many AI startups nowadays are kind of in their early stages. And when I went and looked at Argilla stuff, it was really interesting and gratifying to see. I know you guys have been around, the company's been around since like 2017 in this space. So it seemed like a much more mature solution, and it seemed like it was a more complete solution. Like it fit more into my thought of, well, I've been talking a lot about like what the AI lifecycle looks like for people, and everybody's working on very small pieces of things like, oh, I want to help make this model better. But then there's whole piece of the pipeline, which is how do I deploy actually a real solution, not just solve a tiny problem within that gigantic pipeline. And it seems like you guys are capturing a lot more of that full pipeline flow, or at least a larger part of the pipeline flow, which makes things easier for like the data engineers and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also why we believe that you should tackle a project like any arbitrary model is normally linked to a source of truth data set. And this is kind of a continuous process where you continue on developing your model, fine-tuning your model again, then running inference on your data that's coming in. And then from that initial predictions, you'll end up sending them back to your source of truth data set, where you'll end up verifying them with human labeling. And then, yeah, through semantic search or things like bulk labeling or the other cool features that we have integrated within the UI, it really helps it a lot.
Okay, and I don't know if you're familiar with kind of the what your engineering team is doing. Obviously, you're an engineer yourself. But I don't know if you've worked with the Intel Liftoff team. Are you familiar with what your team did with the Intel Liftoff team and the benefits they were getting out of working like in the Intel Developer Cloud, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So what we've done, yeah, mostly in collaboration with the Intel Liftoff team is kind of deploying initial like model fine tunes based on our data sets, but also based on the new Intel Development Cloud. And that's mostly what we've been working on in collaboration with them because and alongside of it, that is also kind of outlining a rough overview of how we should configure our SaaS solution and getting some back and forth there as well. So that's helped us a lot as a startup with a lot of experience, but less experience in rolling out these kind of solutions. So it's nice to be able to access like, the knowledge from Intel Liftoff.
Yeah, and your solutions, I'm assuming, they're probably running on GPUs because you're talking about LLMs. You're going to need that performance. And in the Intel Developer Cloud, you're using probably the Intel Data Center Max GPUs versus what you might get in a public cloud right now, whether it's a NVIDIA GPU or as AMD starts rolling out their MI 300 solutions. Um, how was that experience using the Intel GPUs versus our competitor GPUs?
So initially we tested the Gaudis, and I believe that at least from what I've heard from the ML data science team is that they were crazy quick. So that's good feedback to get because nobody wants to wait for the models being done training. And also with this label where you would be able to use like these kind of solutions for synthetic data generation and really scaling to large scale synthetic data sets, these things come handy as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually didn't know. I assumed that you guys were using the Intel Data Center Max just because they're easier to get access to. The Gaudis are in much higher demand, so it's great that you're able to use the
Yeah,
Gaudis
we
to train your stuff.
due to the Intel Liftoff partnership, we managed to get a hands on some.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. And I was looking up on your website that the statistics of the amount of people that are using Argilla it's almost mind blowing to me.
Mm.
Just part of it, I guess, is because it's a company that's been around, but it said you had 2.1 million downloads and 5,000 active open source deployments right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we partnered with Hugging Face to Hugging Face Spaces. And within Hugging Face Space, what you are able to do is actually copy paste templates, Docker templates, and actually deploy them as if they were your own. So what we've done, I think half a year ago, is actually create this Argilla template where we created a Docker image and baked everything that we would need for an Argilla deployment in there. So it's really the push of a button, like click, click, and then you have your own Argilla deployment. It actually ships with some demo data sets showcasing how you should configure Argilla for basic text classification, retrieval augmented generation, but also multimodality and these kind of things. So it's really good to go within like 5 minutes, and it has really launched also the open source downloads and these kind of things. And we're looking into partnering with other partners for these kind of solutions as well. So that's nice. Also with Intel, of course. So we're still discussing how to get Argilla or that Docker template up on the Intel Development Cloud catalog as well.
Oh yeah, that would be great. I'm sure we'd love to have such a solid, mature solution as one of our services. Right now, because you guys are open source, do you find, and maybe it's hard to know when you're open source, do you find that people are deploying themselves like in a cloud? Are they deploying on-prem? Are they coming to you guys to go through some type of standard deployment flow that you guys kind of certify and support? What's
Mhm.
kind of the model that people use your software?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of people just use the open source solution, and then yeah, they either just deploy somewhere on a cloud often. Then I think some of the more large scale private companies, of course, they deploy on prem, especially due to the fact that it's about data, and it's very privacy prone, of course. And then there's some people that also some people that also make use of our software as our SaaS solution, where we deploy Argilla for them, and we actually host and manage everything for them in terms of ensuring that there's Elasticsearch backups, that everything is scalable, and these kind of things. And on top of that, we also provide some guidance for them to make the most out of Argilla in terms of the configuration and these kind of things.
Oh yeah, I did see that. I think I was reading that you support Elasticsearch as a backend. You had what, OpenSearch, AWS
Yeah,
OpenSearch as
exactly. So
well.
it's not native vector search because we initially started off without vector search when we thought that it
Hmm.
was very important for people to be able to really dive into their data and be able to search their documents and these kind of things while they're labeling. But then with the rise of vector search, we decided to add this addition to each one of the entries that you end up getting within Argilla, and then you'll end up being able to search for similar records and bulk label based on the vector search capabilities within Elasticsearch or OpenSearch.
And have you guys found like really good benefits out of adding that vector search layer?
Yeah, we have. So especially, I would say very um, tech-oriented AI engineers that train hundreds or thousands of models and continuously need to upgrade them. They really make a lot of use of this vector search capability. Recently, we also had an AI engineer, Seth Levine, who's hosting this Learning from Machine Learning podcast on, and he's working at Loris AI. And he was very enthusiastic about the vector search capability, because you really go from having this idea or notion in your head, querying for the label, for example, positive or negative, and then you'll be able to directly label a lot of exemplar records at once, and then you can directly train a model and actually verify if your model is working correctly. So it really minimizes the development time or the labeling time for such models.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, right? How do you get that data labeling correct and make it easy? I know we've got our Intel Getty product, which is where we're on computer vision, but it's the same idea. How do I
Mhm.
simplify this process rather than having to dig through spreadsheets and try to
Yeah, exactly.
normalize outputs?
That's
Okay.
also a lot of people that end up coming to Argilla, the people that initially built something themselves, either using spreadsheets or Google Sheets or something like Grady or Streamlit, and then find out that even though it's fully customizable and it's really cool and working quite well, it doesn't scale, and then you end up using some data annotation tool to actually keep track of your data.
Okay, I'm gonna pivot a little bit. I'd like to talk a little bit. So you've been in the NLP space for a while, for quite a while. I mean, it's most people think of just the last 2 years as the explosion, right, around kind of the NLP, and then the extension of that, large language models, which is kind of, I guess, the buzzword for NLP nowadays. Um, where do you think this space is going? So with the advent of natural language processing, like you said, being more everywhere and kind of growing into different spaces, like before we used to think of it as like ways to translate, ways to summarize, um, and categorize things. Now it seems like people are saying, hey, I could use NLP anywhere. Is there a place that you think NLP might be super interesting go in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so one thing idea I've been playing around a bit with is like digital marketing and these kind of solutions, because how you normally optimize these kind of NLP solutions for digital marketing is doing A/B tests and maybe something like a multi-arm bandit algorithm or these kind of things. But if you would be able to directly capture implicit human feedback based on browser behavior or these kind of things, it would be very interesting to see how that plays kind of with the LLM space. And on top of that, I think solutions like healthcare or maybe um, things where people might feel shame talking to other people. So, for example, myself, I'm learning to speak Spanish because I recently moved to Madrid, and there one of the downsides of learning Spanish is that you actually need to do it. You need to go out there and you need to practice with someone to actually get experience. And what I've noticed is that it's easier to kind of spin up a Whisper model, then link up a LLM via Olama, and then kind of go back and forth there with a Koki model as well. And then you kind of have your entire loop of your kind of speech training, totally local, totally private in a way. And I can imagine this kind of solutions also being relevant for things like healthcare or these kind of things. Even though, of course, it's risky for these kind of scenarios, but I think that these are very interesting solutions.
That is a really interesting solution. I talk to a lot of people, both
Mhm.
in Intel and externally, about different ways to use AI solutions and especially obviously large language models, etc. That is the first time I've heard of that, where somebody says, I should do it to have a conversation with myself to get
Yeah.
better at speaking a particular language. That's a really great
Mm.
use case, though. I think somebody's
Yeah,
gonna have
I
to pick
mean,
that up. I'm sure
it's a
somebody's
nice
doing it.
hobby project on the side.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Um, all right. So let's see. We've talked a little bit about novel solutions in NLP. Where are you guys deployed? Let's talk about that. I'll go back to Argilla. So right now, you guys can do on-prem. You mentioned that you guys have some kind of managed things that sometimes you set it up. Is that something that you do? You go do the on-prem setup, or is that something that you do like in a cloud, like in an AWS, and then somebody just uses it as
So
kind of?
yeah, that's being done in a cloud. So we have
Okay.
I think GCP currently, where we deploy most of our stuff. But as a yeah, we try to adapt to whatever our clients need, so to say. And yeah, in some cases someone has a GCP subscription, other cases they have a slightly different subscription. But our cloud is now mainly hosted there.
Okay. All right. Um, and so I don't know if I have too much. I mean, we kind of covered a lot of things. The thing that I always ask people, last thing, and it's kind of similar to the question I asked you before, but outside of the NLP space or within the NLP space, where do you hope technology is going in the next 5 years? What are you looking forward to, especially as a developer advocate? What are you looking forward to in the next 5 years in terms of where technology is taking us?
Yeah, for me it would be more private, personalized models. So yeah, currently everyone that does anything either goes to OpenAI, but nowadays also maybe other providers like Anthropic or these kind of things. And for me, it would be really cool to have your models running on device, to have be able to maybe run your model at home, make requests to your server somewhere, and then really have your private LLM flow, so to say, going. And then based on that, you might even be able to actually start labeling your own data, to start aligning your model with your own preferences. And I think that is very interesting for me. That kind of bridges this gap as well. Is these yeah, LoRa adapters, for example, where you kind of leave the base model alone and train just a small adapter on top of your LLM, where you would be able to have one main model and then yes, several models dedicated to each one of your interests. And yeah, this is for me also a very promising part to move to that private solution, because in that sense you would also be able to kind of anonymize some part of the process of making requests as well. And on top of that, yeah, synthetic data is also one of the cool things. For us, it's kind of a weird scenario where we always value human feedback, but at the same time, AI feedback and synthetic data are kind of on the rise now. So I'm also curious where that will go. But I hope in the end that in the end you'll still be able to need human feedback, because in order to actually validate if it aligns with humans, I would say that you need humans. And luckily we have the AI Act in Europe and now also in the United States. That's probably going to ensure some of that is still relevant.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost even whether it's AI or anything else, if we end up as people in an echo chamber, right, where we're all listening to ourselves talk and you never get that outside feedback, you end up with some really, really weird outcomes. So I think that you're right. I think we'll always need that outside feedback for sure. Um, all right, yeah, and the other thing is, Laura. I've tried using actually because I've got like obviously being Intel, I've got a Meteor Lake laptop, right? It's an Intel Core Ultra laptop. I've been running small LLMs on there on the NPU, running them on the GPU. I've got a bigger system that's got all the vendor GPUs in it and running like Laura on those. It's really cool. Like yeah, being able to do that locally, not having to do it in a data center, not having to do it in a cloud, and hoping that somebody else is doing it nicely for you. It's going to be a cool experience when we get there, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. Or at least when I first found out that you would be able to do like for example something like Olama and then Olama serve, Olama run, Olama do Llama 2, and then you'll end up with your local LLM, and it actually works quite fast as well. I'm running it on a MacBook, but yeah, it's basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, I do this. I also have a MacBook too. I've also played with that.
The MacBook.
I just like to play with technology. All
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Well, David Berenstein, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you being my first victim to come on and be recorded on video. So hopefully we are able to make it turn out great, and good luck with Argilla.
Yeah, thanks. You too, and good luck with your fellow victims. Bye bye.
Thank you, listeners, for coming in and listening, and hopefully you enjoyed the video podcast. And we'll see you next time when we talk more technology and trends in industry.